What's up YouTube, it's the Senate Tech Ninja back at again with another video, and today we'll be doing the full review on a Sony SRS-XG500 and comparing it to my favorite boombox, the JBL Boombox 2. So, has the JBL 5 minutes match? Well, let's find out in this video. I've had this Sony for around 3 weeks, and during this time period, I had an unexpected blast to the futuristic boombox design with the RGB pass radius on the sides that allow you to see rolling shutter with your own eyes. Hashtag bars. But even at night, I just listen to this speaker at lower volumes, which it is very good at, and just watch the pass radius dance. But one thing I will say, with certain songs, it does play pretty bad, but with others, it plays pretty well. And I also wish that the lights were in the front, so it can be more like the XP43 and complete this futuristic boombox design. So let's take a look underneath the hood, shall we? Moving on to the specs, starting off with the weight and dimensions. This speaker weighs in at a hefty 11.5 pounds with the dimensions of 18.1 inches wide, 10.1 inches tall, and 8.5 inches long. It is a little bigger than the already huge Boombox 2, but it is a pound lighter. Going on to the speaker setup. So Sony has its own X-band speakers, which are square-shaped speakers to produce bigger sound in a more compact form factor. So comparing it to the Boombox 2, typical round shaped drivers, and wherever usage, you do hear a little bit of a difference when it comes to overall soundstage. But going on to the woofer size, it is 4.3 inches, while the tweeters is 0.98 inches, with two pass radius on sides, pushing 35 watts whenever it is plugged in. So I have to say that this is extremely bad for a speaker of this size. It should be at least 60 and up. Moving on to the battery, it's also unknown because Sony hates to disclose their specs for some reason. But if I had to make an educated guess, it's around 10,000 milliamps, but judging by the Boombox 2 and its battery life. But Sony advertises up to 30 hours of listening time, but when the volume is set to maximum, I'm going to get a record-breaking 10 hours and 8 minutes.
Oh yeah!
When the lights is turned on and mega bass is mostly turned off. And it takes 2 hours and 16 minutes to charge from dead to full, which is even better. So I didn't bother to test this at lower volumes because the battery life is already so damn good. So you can possibly get maybe 20 hours, maybe. But moving on to the Boombox 2. JBL advertises up to 24 hours of listening time, but when the volume is set to maximum, I'm able to get 4 hours and 25 minutes on average, and 6 hours and 25 minutes when the volume is set between 50 to 60%. So the battery performance isn't bad, but it can be better, especially when the charging takes 4 hours and 30 minutes. Still not bad, but yet again, it can be better. So when it comes to the wattage, it is really powerful. 60 watts on battery and 80 watts when it's plugged in. So it's more than double the power than a Sony, and it explains its much longer battery life. Moving on to the features. The Sony smokes the JBL in so many different ways, it's not even funny. So going on to the IP rating, the Sony SRS-XG500 is rated IP66 dust and water resistant. So it is rated for a huge splash, but you cannot submerge it. Even though I have seen people have done this and it's surviving, it's not rated for that. Going on to the back, you have your 1/4 inch mic and guitar input with gain control with an amp for your electric guitar, which is really uncommon for a speaker of this size. Next to that, you have your 3.5mm auxiliary input for wire listening, but it does sound better when using over Bluetooth, which is the way how you should use it. Next to that, you have your two USB A out ports that charge at 5 volts each, which is really slow, but it's fast enough to be useful. And the left one supports a thumb drop for audio playback. Next to that, you have your Party Connect. So Sony Party Connect, you're able to pair up to 100 Sony Party Connect speakers together. And I do not have other Sony speakers at this time, but I have heard that the connection can be kind of finicky by sometimes not connecting, disconnecting, and having a finicky connection compared to JBL's Party Boost. More on it later. Next to that, you have Sony's Standard Mode, which basically it reduces the bass, highs, mids, basically the entire EQ down, and turns on the lights to further preserve the battery life if you don't have a charger near you. Next to that, you have Sony's Battery Care, which basically, what it does? Oh yeah, so it limits the maximum charging to 90% to further preserve the longevity of the battery. So this is really good to have over 5 years, but if you only plan to have a speaker for a couple of years, it's really not worth even using. Going on to the sides, you have your customizable RGB lights, which you can control through the Sony Music Center app and further with the Facebook app. But the Music Center app has a lot of features, including a adjustable EQ, which you will definitely want to tune because this speaker definitely sounds muddy out of the box. So what I did, I just turned the sliders all the way up. And going on to the audio codecs, it supports SVC, AAC, and Sony's own LDAC, which is the highest audio codec that you can get, finally. But here's the bad news. When it comes to the overall connection stability, it's actually the worst because it cuts out not too often, but it's often enough for me to notice. But if you do lower the audio codec back to SVC or AAC, it will mostly go away. And the speaker supports Bluetooth 5.0, so I'm able to get over 100 feet, which is crazy and is good enough. Last but not least is the skip and reverse button. So you can double press to go forward and triple press to go back. And I say this because no JBL can go back. So JBL, if you are listening to this video, please fix that. It's a simple thing, but it means a lot to me and other people. But speaking of the boombox, JBL has its own Party Boost, which is a phenomenal pairing protocol. So what you're able to do, you're able to pair up to 100 JBL Party Boost speakers together, or have two Boombox 2s and play them in left and right stereo channels, or in sync up to 100 of that. But on the back, you have your USB-A out port that charges at 5 volts, but for some reason it charges even slower than the Sony, which makes it almost unusable. And your 3.5mm auxiliary input for wire listening. And if I haven't not said it yet, this speaker is rated IPX7 water resistant down to 3.5 feet for 30 minutes. So it's not officially rated dust proof, but honestly, I took this everywhere to the beach and no one has problems with dust yet. On to the sound test. It's about time. So these speakers will be going head to head, but it will be a bit different this time. First, it'll be at medium volume, which is around 50 to 60% volume match. And if you don't know what that means, basically we will have these speakers at different volumes, but I will tune them to sound exactly the same as in volume. And then next we'll play them at 100% so you get the full raw power on each speaker's limits. After that, we'll test these speakers outside at 100%. So please put on your headphones for the best sound experience and let the battle of the boomboxes begin.
Started as a whisper, message from a new world I'd never known. Something about it felt like it been waiting my whole life. Is this so? I can hear reason calling my name, and I feel angels around.
we are back from that sound test, so hopefully y'all have enjoyed that. But moving on, the Sony sounds better than the Boombox 2 at lower volumes, all the way up until 60% give or take. Now, it never has as much highs as the Boombox 2 or the deep bass, but it has an emphasis on the mids, which is the Boombox 2 main weakness, while having a decent dollop of deep bass at lower volumes, but it focuses more on the mid and upper bass. But the drawback here, it pushed back the highs, and all Sony speakers is known for this. So it does sound good at lower volumes until you start to push it beyond 65%. It makes the music sound dull because it doesn't have the power to back it up, because the maximum power is 35 watts. So once you start to push it up, it starts to decrease the deep bass and focus more on the mid and upper bass. And no matter how much you change with the EQ or the mega bass setting, which basically it increases bass, but it takes off from the mids and highs a little bit. And depending on what song you listen to, it can be a pretty noticeable difference. So going on to the Boombox 2, it still sounds good at lower volumes until you put it up against the Sony. And speaking of that, in my testing of 3 weeks, even after my honeymoon phase of this speaker, I am proud to say that this is the best mid to low volume speaker that I have so far. But the Boombox 2 has a emphasis on the bass, which is at 45 Hertz with its peak, and it drops off at 38 Hertz, while the Sony has a peak at 50 Hertz, but it drops off at 43 Hertz. But I realized that Sony tries to trick you by playing frequencies lower than 43 Hertz when using the frequency generator. But in real world usage, you will never hear it. But going on back to the Boombox 2, after 65%, it just takes its additional power, which it's more than double than a Sony, and it just goes forward like no tomorrow. The highs are much more clean, but at the same time, it's a bit ear-piercing when you press the volume above 80% indoors. But it makes the music sound more lively, along with that deep bass that shakes the house more than the Sony, as far as the deep rumble goes. So when it comes to the overall speaker, I gotta say the Boombox 2 takes it, but the Sony did great. But going on to my conclusion. Before you go ahead and buy the Boombox 2, there are some things to consider, like the price, the most important thing for you and your pockets. But going on to the Boombox 2, it retails for $499.95, which is pretty overpriced, while the Sony retails for $448, which is lower than the JBL, but still way too much for what you get. And right now, COVID has everything jacked up, but the least overpriced speaker, in my opinion, is the Boombox 2. Yeah, you're not getting nowhere as many features as there are with the Sony, but at the same time, these are huge Boombox speakers that are designed to play loud. The Sony plays at low volumes well, but when it comes to playing at high volumes, it doesn't have the power to back it up. While the JBL is not perfect, but is doing that pretty damn well. So here is the scoop. I didn't pay that price, and so can you, by buying a speaker refurbished on Amazon. And I know what you're saying, refurbished? I want my thing brand new. Well, look at it. I got this speaker for $178, and no, it was actually like $184.75 after tax. So you can buy 3 Sony SRS-XG500s for the price of 1 Boombox 2 brand new. And look at the quality. Like, I had no issues when it comes to water resistance or overall any hardware issues. And then Amazon has a 90-day money-back guarantee if your speaker has a malfunction, or you can just get a replacement unit. So the Boombox 2 is still the winner when it comes to brand new prices, but once you factor in that refurbished price, which most of y'all should go after for, and I also have the links in the description that will take you there because they're selling really fast. And by doing so, you help out my pockets while I help out yours. So this has been it for this video. And if you want to see the Sony SRS-XG500 versus the JBL Extreme 2 and 3, comment down below or other comparisons. But besides for that, I truly thank y'all for watching. This has been the Ascended Tech Ninja. I'll catch you next video. Peace out.